The office lights buzzed cold and sterile the morning Daniel Reyes lost everything he'd built in 12 years, all because he refused to fire a woman for taking care of her dying mother. He stood in the glass-walled conference room, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from a kind of quiet fury he'd never let himself feel before. Across the table sat Marcus Kane, the CEO, tapping his pen against a folder like a judge about to deliver a sentence. "Do it my way or quit," Marcus said, not even looking up. "I don't pay you to have a conscience, Reyes. I pay you to hit numbers." Daniel was a single father. His son, Eli, was 8 years old and had never known his mother, who'd passed when he was barely 2. Every promotion Daniel had turned down, every extra hour he'd sacrificed, had been to keep dinner on the table by 6 so he could help Eli with homework and read him one more chapter before bed. He'd given this company everything except his soul, and today, Marcus wanted that too. If you believe people deserve a second chance, if you believe kindness still matters in a world that often forgets it, hit that like button, drop a comment, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, because stories like Daniel's are just getting started. The humiliation happened in front of the whole office. Marcus stood, straightened his jacket, and said loud enough for everyone near the glass to hear that men like Daniel were replaceable, that sentiment didn't build empires, that the woman Daniel had protected, Grace, from accounting, was dead weight, and so, apparently, was he. Daniel felt 30 pairs of eyes on him, felt the heat crawl up his neck, felt 11 years of swallowed pride rise in his throat like fire. And then, for the first time in his career, he didn't swallow it. He took off his badge, set it gently on the table like it weighed nothing at all, and said that a company that couldn't make room for compassion didn't deserve his loyalty, his talent, or one more minute of his life. He walked out past the stunned faces, past Grace, who stood frozen by the printer with tears in her eyes, and did not look back. That night, sitting on the edge of Eli's bed, Daniel didn't know how he'd pay rent in 3 weeks. He only knew he could finally look his son in the eye without flinching. The weeks that followed were brutal. Savings drained fast. Interviews came and went, most companies wary of a man who'd walked out of a director role with no warning. Daniel took freelance work wherever he could find it, consulting late into the night after Eli fell asleep, surviving on coffee and stubborn hope. There were nights he sat in the dark kitchen, calculator in hand, wondering if he'd made the worst decision of his life. But every morning, Eli would run into the kitchen in mismatched socks, throw his arms around Daniel's waist, and ask what adventure they'd have that day, and something in Daniel would steady again. Then, 3 months later, Grace called him. She'd quietly kept his number, quietly watched what happened, and quietly begun building something of her own, a small logistics firm founded on the radical idea that employees were human beings first. She needed someone who understood operations, someone who led with integrity instead of fear. She needed Daniel. He said yes before she finished the sentence. Within a year, that small company had tripled its client base, not through ruthlessness, but through trust, the kind of trust Daniel had once been punished for showing. Employees stayed. Clients stayed. And Daniel, for the first time since his wife died, felt like the life he was building actually belonged to him and to Eli, not to a boardroom that measured a man's worth in quarterly reports. If this story moved something in you, if it reminded you that walking away from what breaks you can be the bravest, most life-changing decision you'll ever make, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so we can keep telling stories that matter. And before we go, if you've ever had to choose your integrity over your paycheck, or your child over your career, comment below and tell us your story. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone. Daniel never went back to that glass office. He didn't need to. He'd already found what mattered more than any title ever could, a life built on his own terms, and a little boy who was proud to call him Dad.